This video will be the walkthrough for the first of our 2 IM labs. The goals of this lab were to create 2 users, and then using groups, give one user full EC2 access and the other user full S3 access. Next, we were supposed to give both users console access only, and then finally, our goal was to sign in to each user and verify that they can access the console they were given permission to manage. So let's get started. First, I'm going to click on Services and then find IAM. And then next, I'm going to create my 2 users. So first, I'll add a user and I'll name him Dwight. So recall that we're supposed to give our users console access only and not programmatic access. And to keep this simple, because the lab doesn't specify that we need to give them an auto-generated password or require that they reset their password, I'm going to make this as simple as possible and give Dwight an easy to remember password for now. Next, I'll click Permissions. And for now, because we haven't created the group, I'm going to skip this. And of course, it's going to warn us that this user has no permissions, and that's absolutely fine because we're going to create those permissions and attach them shortly. For now, I'll create the user. And of course, if we need to, we can download the CSV that has our credentials, our login URL, and everything else we need. For now though, I'm just going to grab the login URL, which is the only thing I'm going to need, and I'm going to move on to my second user. I'll close this out, and then I'll add another user. This one I'm going to call Michael. Once again, it's going to be console access only, a custom password, and I'm not going to require a password reset. Permissions, we're going to skip again. And of course, we're getting the no permissions warning, which is fine. Let's create that user. Now recall that because both users will be signing into the same account, the sign-in URL is the same for both users, so I don't need to copy it this time. I'll close out, and now I have both of my users, Dwight and Michael. Now, neither of them have permissions yet, so that's going to be our second step of our lab, which is using groups, give one user full EC2 access and one user full S3 access. Well, let's do that now. So I already have an EC2 admins group from another video, but I'm going to go ahead and recreate a new group just to walk through the steps here. So, create a new group. I'm going to call it full EC2. And then, of course, on the next step, we're going to get a list of all of our managed permissions. And because I want this group to have EC2 full access, I'm going to search for EC2 full access. I'll attach it to the group and create the group. Now we need a group that provides full S3 access. So I'm going to create a new group, call it S3 full. Next step, I'm going to search for S3 full access, which again is an AWS managed policy. And I'll enable that and create the group. Now that we have 2 users and 2 groups, we need to assign the users to the groups. So for the full EC2 group, I'm going to highlight it, click Group Actions, and click Add Users to Group. I'm going to make Dwight the full EC2 administrator, so I'll click Add Users. And that's all there is to it. Now you'll see that the full EC2 group has 1 user. Let's do the same for the S3 group. Group Actions, Add Users to Group, and we'll make Michael an S3 administrator. So Add Users, and that's all there is to it. So far we've created 2 users, we've given them console access only, and then using groups, we've given each user either full S3 access or full EC2 access. So the last step is to sign into both users and make sure that they have the permissions they need. Let's start with Dwight. So I gave Dwight access to EC2. So let's log in as Dwight and make sure that he has full access to our EC2 console. Notice the sign-in URL will populate the account ID with the correct account ID. And there we go. We're logged in as Dwight in our account. So let's go to Services and EC2. Looks like I don't see any running instances. So the first thing I always do if I don't see something that I think I should is I check the region. And sure enough, it looks like we're set to the wrong region. So I'm going to go back to US East 1. Perfect. There we go. So we're seeing all of the EC2 instances that we should. And it looks like we have full permissions to change any of the settings just like we thought we should, which means Dwight has successfully been given full EC2 permissions. If he hadn't been given the correct permissions, then the page would look similar to this, where instead of seeing the things you think you should, you get an access denied. And of course, any other service that I try to access with Dwight, I'm going to get access denied because the only thing we gave Dwight access to were the EC2 permissions. Alright, so we've successfully given Dwight full EC2 access. Now let's make sure Michael has full S3 access. So let's sign back into the console as Michael. And just for a quick comparison, we're in the right region, and we expect to see access denied this time for Michael because we're in EC2. Yep, and Michael does not have EC2 permissions, so this is good. Now let's check for S3, and as long as we see our buckets and it looks like we can interact with them, then Michael has successfully been given full S3 access. There you go. So instead of access denied, we see all of the buckets that we've created so far in this course. And it looks like we have no problem managing them. And that'll wrap it up for this lab. So in this lab, we created 2 users, and then using groups, we gave each of them full access to different AWS services. And then finally, we signed in to both users and verified that they can both use the services they were supposed to be able to use. That's all for this video, so if that made sense, feel free to move on.